Wow, hello there, everyone. Not sure why you guys can't hear music. That's really weird. Oh well, I'll put it in later. How's everyone doing out there today? Excellent. Welcome to another episode of Lou Reviews, the destination for critical thinking in the realm of the unexplained. Please don't forget to smack that like, share, and subscribe button. Ring the bell. That way you're notified. You can. Links are in the description below. We truly appreciate it. We've also got super chats open as well. So if you got a question that I missed, or if you're just dying, must have it read, super chat's a great way to go. Today is going to be a real treat because we've got Jeremy McGowan is stopping by to break down the UFO legislation. He's here to tell us exactly what Jay Stratton said to him at a UFO conference, and he's also going to address the comments that Sean Cahill made, and we've also got a bonus surprise for you guys, so stay tuned to the end of the show because there's some big news coming that I think will be very interesting. So yeah, here we go. The one. Well, hold on. Let's switch cameras here. Here we go. Without further ado, the one, the only, Mr. Jeremy McGowan. How you doing, buddy?
Mr. Lou, what's going on, brother?
Not much, man. Not much. Other than just checking my audio here. Let me hear you one more time, just to make sure everybody out there can hear you.
Mic check 1 2 1 2.
Perfect.
Can you hear me?
Perfect. All right, so. McGowan, it's been a little while since we've had you on the show, but I always love when you stop by. I guess first off, buddy, how you doing, man?
Man, I am doing good.
Yeah,
I'm actually really doing good. Now that some of the weirdness in the whole UFO stuff, my participation with UAPX, the movie Skinwalker Ranch, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I had concentrated a lot on that, instead of concentrating on life and family and things that are truly important on a personal level.
Right.
And now that I've basically pulled my head out of my butt and started focusing on the things that matter on a personal level, life has gotten much, much better. So I appreciate you asking.
Yeah, man. I mean, I always love to know how you're doing. And yeah, I mean, just from an outsider, outsider, because I don't consider myself an outsider to your life. But from an outside perspective, hit the wrong thing here. Give me a second, guys. From an outside perspective, there we go. I was going to say, you seem happy, man. Like you're a lot more grounded, because I feel like stuff doesn't bother you as much, and for good reasons.
It doesn't. It honestly doesn't. I've come to the conclusion that most of the people that gave me hell for certain things, in the long grand scheme of things, they're inconsequential. And I did let it bother me a lot. I deleted a Twitter account. I came back. I tried to kind of get my head in the right space, and that didn't work. And I just did some readjustment and just realized that the vocal minority that's out there that is screaming and thumping their chests, who cares?
Yeah,
honestly,
no.
Who really cares?
Nobody cares. And what's great is also just to realize that it's really only a couple dozen, maybe, idiots,
right?
Which feels like a few thousand for some reason. And This is not just an us thing. Like, you hear celebrities talk about this all the time, where they're like, I have 4 million followers, and for some reason, the only comment I see is the one negative one. And it's like, I don't know what it is about human nature that where we just, our eyes are immediately drawn to the thing that emotionally triggers us, right. I guess.
Yeah.
It's just, it's such a weird
so
thing.
True. And I'll be honest, some of those guys, they're really good at finding the buttons to push and eliciting that response. And once I just made that internal realization that I was being played for a response, I just stopped.
Yeah, no, it's a wise move. I have to really quickly apologize that especially Ivana Rios, who woke up at 6 a.m. to watch my show today because I put it at a 4 a.m. start time instead of a 4 p.m. start time. That's my bad, Ivana Rios. So many apologies, my lady. I am sorry from the bottom of my heart. I will try to never let that happen again. And I just hello to everyone else in the chat. All right, so let's get into this, McGowan. The first thing I wanted to talk about, and I can bring this up on the screen. You won't be able to see it, but the audience will. It's sort of my little way of kind of sharing things that that Jeremy is talking about here. And the thing that I'm bringing up on the screen here, Jeremy, is your Medium article or blog. And if you guys don't know, Jeremy has a blog on Medium, and the link is in the description below. So if you want to go read this, I highly recommend you check it out. It's about a 20-minute read. We're not going to go through the whole thing because we've got Jeremy here. We can kind of get an overview and go back and forth on it. But what I will do is read the tweet that he put out on November 25th, 2023. And it's in regards to the legislation that's happening now. And I will just, for the record as well, say that I 100% am with Jeremy on this one. And also, like, you know, for the record, like, we're not against disclosure. Like, that's one of the, like, you highlight that. Let me be clear. I am 100% not against disclosure in capital letters. So I do love that. So with that said, for the record, he writes, Jeremy McGowan, yes, I did call reps and speak against the legislation. Not because I'm anti-disclosure, but because the legislation was flawed and needs to be rebuilt from the ground up. The legislation was great for government attorneys and horrible for transparency and accountability. The UFO activists think that just because it says UAP in the bill, that it's a win for disclosure. The legislation would have actually set back public understanding and information access to cheers and accolades of countless non-thinking champions. All because some ex-Intel messiah and a 2-bit Australian journalist told them how to think. And this is something that we bring up quite a bit, Mr. Ross Coulthart, and I agree with that sentiment, a 2-bit Australian journalist. There's so many reasons why that's an accurate statement. But it's, what's wrong with the legislation from your point of view, Jeremy?
So, to preface this, for those that don't know, I am a program manager, not a project manager, but a program manager with a prolific defense contractor. My job is to read, review, analyze, do deep dives on government language, requests for proposals, requests for quotes, requests for information, and then lead a team that responds to those requests. One of the things that we have to do, me specifically, is look at the placement of every comma, look at the meaning of every word, not just in the sentence that they're putting forth, but in the broader context of the intent of the documentation. When I read, and I'm talking about the Schumer bill, not the Burchett version, but when I read the Schumer bill proposed legislation, it was ambiguous, it was vague, it was open-ended, and it had no teeth. For example, there's one specific portion, and this is in the blog post that I put on Medium. The original text that Schumer put out says, and I think it starts on line 8, says that all federal government records concerning unidentified anomalous phenomena should carry a presumption of immediate disclosure, and all records should be eventually disclosed to enable the public to become fully informed about the history of the federal government's knowledge and involvement surrounding unidentified anomalous phenomena. So, first off, you can't do that. All federal government records should carry a presumption of immediate disclosure. You can't do that. There are so many things out there, and we know there are misidentification of highly technical, highly secretive, advanced projects that are misidentified as UAP. Now they're going to be classified as a UAP in those records. You cannot disclose those. You cannot release those. So the legislation, as it's worded right there, it's impossible. Um, then they say that and all records should be eventually disclosed.
Hmm.
Well, that's great for my great grandchildren,
Right. What
but it
does
serves
eventually
nothing.
mean?
It doesn't do anything for
Yeah.
us, right?
Yeah.
So if you wanted to make that section better, it should say all federal government records pertaining to unidentified anomalous phenomena shall be subject to disclosure. Each relevant agency must commence the review process within, let's say, 90 days of the enactment of the act and complete it within 2 years. Records shall be disclosed unless they fall under specific, narrowly defined exceptions for national security, personal privacy, or proprietary information, which must be justified on a case-by-case basis. An independent oversight committee will review decisions to withhold records and resolve disputes. So that takes what the Schumer amendment had as its intent
Right.
and words it in a way that is actually possible in the way that the government operates.
Because you're only
And that's
putting
at the beginning of the amendment. And,
Yeah.
and if you go through this amendment, every single thing in there is worded in such a way that makes it impossible to enact, does not provide for an out, which would mean that the CIA, the NSA, the NRO, the NGA, they would lawyer up. They would
Yeah.
prevent the release of anything, and we would be stalled for decades upon decades upon decades.
So if you were a disclosure advocate, let's say, what would be, or if you could talk to Schumer and say, and tell him how to improve this bill, because it sounds like it's very simple. Make it more specific, and in that we want all of the information unless it reveals someone's personal information or some sort of proprietary, I guess, technology, right?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that I would do if I was to be able to speak with Schumer, and assuming that he would tell me the absolute truth about it,
Yeah.
the first thing that I would ask him is what his intent is with this proposed legislation. Is the intent simply to placate some folks that are yelling about UAP, or is it really to provide open access to information to the general public? And depending on how he answered that question would change how I approach the rest of the conversation, because he, again, assuming that he would tell me the absolute God's honest truth, if he comes out and says, Jeremy, this legislation is designed to block disclosure, I would believe him, because that's exactly what it's going to do. And in that case, he's accomplished it. If this passes the way it's written, he's accomplished it, because nothing is going to come out because of the loopholes, because of the inadequacies of the writing, the wording, and the inability to disclose everything immediately, right? You can't do that.
Well, real quickly,
but if that was his intent, so be it. But I would want to know what his intent with the legislation actually was.
If you had to guess, I'm looking at Schumer's website right now, just to make sure I know exactly what committees he sits on. But if you had to guess, which one do you think he leans? Do you think he's placating to an audience and doing this for retweets and popularity and sort of maybe get himself reelected? Or is he doing this because he's genuinely curious and is trying to get some transparency on an issue? Or, or is that, or part of that placation that he's doing also a way for him to help the DOD cover for top secret tech and or a drone issue, or both?
I don't know the answer to that. And I don't.
Well, I know you don't know, but let's speculate for a second.
If sheer speculation, just personal gut with absolutely no data to back it up or to be able to validate my claim, I would say that Schumer somebody has his ear.
Yeah.
Whether it's a Putov or a Corbell or a Knapp or an Elizondo, somebody has his ear, and they're trying to do what they think is the right way to go about it. But because there's not enough interest, there's not enough support at the legislative level of this, they didn't put the attorneys on this. They didn't create the wording sufficiently.
Right.
It's hey, it's a larger version of, hey, trust me, bro, we need to do this, and
Yeah.
let's get it done. And it wasn't put through sufficient review. It wasn't looked at as a cause and effect analysis. They didn't do any risk mitigation framework on this. They didn't analyze any of the cause and effect. They didn't say, okay, if we say, slide tab A into slot B, who's going to get upset? Who's going to get pissed off? Who's going to try to block this with attorneys? Is this actually possible to do with the other laws, with the other legislation that we have in place? Does this invalidate executive orders? Does this invalidate national security concerns? What are the issues? They didn't do any of that.
Right.
So I think that this was probably a very rushed job based on the fact that somebody has Schumer's ear.
Well, I think it was very clear, and I don't think anyone can argue that the first version of this UAP amendment that went in, not last year, but the year prior, with the support of Gillibrand and Rubio and that whole gang of senators that were talking about this at the time. I oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought.
Look,
shit. No, well, I wonder if fuck, dude, if they're yeah. Anyway, here's what I was saying. Christopher Mellon I think it was pretty clear that those amendments, those bills were handwritten by Christopher Mellon. And not an attorney. Like, those were the things that they were telling us to say publicly. Those were the initiatives that they were pushing behind the scenes prior to those bills being written. And, so I'm wondering if this Schumer amendment is not only Christopher Mellon's handprint all over it, but I wouldn't be shocked if, say, people from Americans for Safe Aerospace, like Orion Graves, had some hand in writing this legislation. Because I think
they may well
me if
have.
I'm wrong.
And whoever had a hand in writing it,
yeah,
whoever had a hand in writing it doesn't understand the legal, the compliance, and the risk mitigation factor frameworks that you have to go through to be able to craft the appropriate wording. There's another section.
Well, before you get to the other section, is the way the amendment written now open the door for organizations like Americans for Safe Aerospace, like Galileo Project, like the Soul Foundation, which we see all of these guys doing, and we look at their boards and they're all the same players. It's the Nolans, it's the Graves, they all tie. It's all from the branch of this Lou Elizondo, Christopher Mellon tree. And my question is the way the amendment's written now, does it open the door for these organizations to take advantage of wasteful government spending?
Yes and no. I don't think it opens the door for them to take advantage of wasteful government spending. What I think it does is, because the amendment, if it's enacted the way it's written now, is ineffective. What I think would occur is the Soul Foundations, the Americans for Safe Aerospace, those groups would then be able to come up and say, hey, this is broken.
Right.
Let us fix it.
Right. And give us $1 billion contract to do it.
Give
or
us
whatever.
Not necessarily. It would be written in a way. It would be written in a way at that point, an amendment to an amendment.
Yeah.
Years down the road, when we haven't gotten anything, it would enable those organizations to carve a niche for themselves and be able to become important when they wouldn't have to be important if the legislation was created correctly to begin with.
Right. Because, well, my concern is that an organization like Soul or like Americans for Safe Aerospace are going to go into a congressman or a senator's office, which they've done before, and say, hey, you guys wrote this legislation. The government and the DOD aren't giving us the answers that we want. Let my organization take a look at this for you. Let us buy the equipment. Let us buy the sensors. Let us write the policy and let us enact it and give us the room to operate independently of the DOD. Which would basically be OSAP on fucking steroids. Like, it would be, that's not going to be a $22 million contract when Americans for Safe Aerospace gets the permission or the contract to do that. I think it's going to be, if not billions, definitely, I think, in the hundreds of millions.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily benefit Americans for Safe Aerospace or the Sol Foundation to begin with. The contractor that I think would benefit from it would be Sandcorp, who is working with Aero already, right? Sandcorp is doing policy review and public outreach and things like that. So they would be primed to be able to take ownership of how to fix it. But I want to go into another section on the amendment. That on, I think it's line 10 on the amendment, it says, no unidentified anomalous phenomena record made available or disclosed to the public prior to the date of the enactment of this act may be withheld, redacted, postponed for public disclosure, or reclassified. That means anything, literally anything that is even tangentially associated to UAP can be withheld, redacted, postponed, or anything. I mean, you can't do that just because we hear, and I'm trying to choose my words carefully. Somebody says, okay, well, that's all about UAP, but it's not, because if you've got a 6th gen, a 7th gen fighter that nobody knows about that's employing active camouflage, and somebody happens to catch a glimpse of it and make a report, the FAA catches it, and now it's submitted, you're not going to release that information because that information is tied to other information that's tied to other information, and it goes on. And according to that wording, it would be full disclosure of every single military activity that has ever happened that somebody has mistaken for a UFO. And the way to fix that is so simple, and it would be changing that wording to say unidentified anomalous phenomena records shall be preserved in their original form to the extent possible. Records may be altered, redacted, or withheld only if they contain classified information critical to national security, personal privacy, data protected under existing privacy laws, or proprietary information subject to intellectual property rights. In such cases, agencies must provide a brief explanation for the redaction or withholding, subject to review by an independent oversight body, and all efforts to declassify information that no longer warrants protection shall be expedited. So that is the intent of what the Schumer Amendment wanted to do, and it enables it to be done, whereas the Schumer Amendment would lock those records up for multiple decades during lengthy legal battles, exceptionally expensive court cases, and could actually trigger the further reclassification and redaction of documents for another 25 to 60 years.
So why? It boggles my mind how they get people so riled up to call their lawmakers to support this. And this is why we dropped all those initiatives in Big Phone Home 3. And sort of to answer the question from the super chat, thanks for the super chat, by the way, UFO intros, they want to do a Big Phone Home 4. It's just like, look, if we did a Big Phone Home 4, we would ask for things like what Jeremy's asking, more specificity, for a lawyer to maybe write it. Like, let's get an actual attorney to write this, or at least go over it and make it, give it some teeth, give it something that cuts to the bone.
Not only teeth, but give it compliance, because you can't have an amendment like this to a National Defense Authorization Act that is in contravention to existing laws, rules, regulations, and executive orders. You can't have it. Not only that, but the amendment does not even contain an out. It doesn't say if any provision of this amendment is unenforceable, it doesn't
Right.
null and void the full amendment.
Right.
That's not even in there. So if a court case comes up and they say, okay, we can't do line whatever because it's unconstitutional or it violates another law or regulation, the court could literally strike down the entire amendment because there's no justification to preserve the other portions in the case that a specific portion is considered null and void. It's just a horribly written piece of legislation.
Okay, so then let me ask you this. I'm gonna play old Lou here from UCR. It's better than nothing, McGowan. Right? Like, this is progress. It's better than nothing. Like, what? Like, isn't this getting this in front of lawmakers and getting a bill that maybe on the surface looks wonderful and amazing and appetizing, but when you actually get into the depths of it, it's got no teeth at all. But isn't that better than nothing?
No, it's not. And I'll tell you exactly why. Let's say that the Schumer amendment passes as it's worded now.
Yeah.
And with the wording that's there, disclose everything now, wording. Right. You're going to have the CIA, the NSA, the NRO, the NGA. You're going to have all the intelligence agencies going and filing suit against the legislation. You're going to have them locking records down. You're going to have records pulled. They're going to be compartmentalized and they're going to be held for review.
Mark this right now, everyone mark this moment right here, because here's what's going to, that's exactly what's going to happen. And then the community's going to go, they're hiding information. They don't want us to know the truth. The ontological shock. Oh my God. Like, catastrophic disclosure.
It's going to be hidden. It's going to be hidden for eons.
Well, it's not even hidden, but it's a natural legal response because it's a stupid request.
And you can't do an MDR. You can't do a mandatory declassification review for something that is pending. What's the word I'm looking for? It's pending investigation. You can't file a FOIA for something that is in legal jeopardy. You can't pull those records. And if this amendment passes and those records, those documents, those cases get tied up because the CIA doesn't want them to be released and it's going to the IG and it's going to, whatever oversight committee, that is decades upon decades of obfuscation. It's an easy way for the intelligence community to ensure that we never see anything.
Damn. Yeah. I mean, oh boy, that's you're not making people happy.
I'm not here to make people happy. I'm here to try to tell people the truth.
I hear you. But I mean, look, it sounds to me, look, I and I'm looking again at Schumer's, I can't find any committees that he sits on. So he's just Speaker of the House then, right? It sounds like he didn't even read the bill. And I'm going to go ahead and give Chuck Schumer I think he knows how to write bills. I think he knows how to decipher bills. I think he at some point was probably a pretty damn good legislator and knew how to, and was a hawk with these kinds of things. I think that's why so many people on the Hill like him. I think that's why he has so many relationships. That's why he's been there so long. I think this is something that was handed to him and said, hey, because he always mentions this every time he talks about the bill, is his good friend, Harry Reid. And I think this is a piece of legislation that was written together by think tanks and I don't even know what to label these guys. Unreliable narrators is the best way to describe that. So Jack Brewer phrase.
I'll put this in the most succinct, poignant way that I possibly can.
Go for it.
The Schumer legislation is the best friend of the military industrial complex, the intelligence community, and anybody in government that never wants records declassified. That is who champions this amendment. If you don't want the information out, pass this bill because it is going to be tied up in legal battles for decades.
So I'm going to ask you again to speculate, but why would someone want to pass a bill like that? What entity would want to pass a bill like that? Oh, I mean, obviously the military industrial complex would probably want a bill like that, but there's got to be other, let's just take that conspiracy part out of it. It's not really conspiracy. I mean, that makes sense, but why would Christopher Mellon want legislation like this? Why would Lou Elizondo push for legislation? Why are they asking people to call representatives for this shitty piece of legislation? Telling them that this is going to bring them truth and transparency.
It's one of three things. It's got to be one of three things. The first one is they don't understand. And I don't want to believe that, because these are legitimately smart people. And, you know, they've worked in the DIA, they've worked in the Secretary of Defense office. They've worked in these policies and programs, and they should understand. So I don't want to think that it's they don't understand.
Yeah.
The second reason is maybe they know more about what the majority of these sightings are, and they're pushing for this legislation to help protect national security interests. And they're not all about disclosure. And the third one is also something that I don't want to believe is true, but it could be. Disclosure kills them. What existence level do they go through
without it
after disclosure?
Right.
What books do they write? What movies do they go to? What do they lobby? Where is their importance in the world after we know?
So then, I'm with you on these three possibilities, and I want to ask a question about the third one. If that is true, what kind of trouble are these guys in?
None.
Why?
Absolutely none. Why?
How are they? Because they're bogarting the reputation of the federal government and their resumes to push a false narrative that is causing confusion. I mean, just a couple of months ago, a guy stabbed his father 57 times because of this shit. Like,
there's no law against it.
There's how?
I can come out. I could today, right here on your show. I could come out and say that in my position as a defense contractor, I happen to know the location of a crashed UFO. I don't, but I could say that, and it's protected by the First Amendment. I can say whatever the hell I want to say.
But once you start monetizing that, isn't that considered like some kind of consumer fraud?
No, absolutely not. I'm not selling a product.
Well, sure you are. You're selling books. You're selling movies.
I have the Constitution of the United States backing me up, saying that I can say whatever the hell I want to say.
I just don't understand how they don't get in trouble. Because, I mean, to me, it's embarrassing. If you're the Department of Defense and you got... Oh, shit. Man, we got a $20 donation. Thank you, Kaplizier. I'll get to that in a second. If you got a group of guys within the United States government using their positions to sell fantasy, that's got to be a scar on the defense system. Also, the fact that they're causing so much confusion.
It's not. Well, the United States government sells a fantasy every single day. That's what
true.
They do.
That's fair.
Have you seen the TSA?
Yes.
We sell the illusion of security to the general world at large. That's what the government does.
No, okay, I stand corrected on that. But what I will say is that, for example, that article that was written by Chris Sharp just a couple of days ago, that office that was within the CIA. That they outed, right?
The OGA,
how many
access.
phone calls, how many emails, how much tying up of time did they have to waste answering questions from a bunch of maniacs or tying up the phone?
Honestly,
you don't
much.
Think so?
There's a duty officer at the public affairs desk that they have. They were probably taken by surprise for the first 45 minutes or so. They probably convened a meeting over email or over Microsoft Teams or on GCC High, got a NipperNet conversation going, and they created within 45 minutes a policy statement. That's all it took.
On how to answer if you do get a call.
Yep.
So then what about, like, you've got Sean Kirkpatrick at a conference talking about how his wife and his children were looked up and the amount of harassment that they received from people in the community. Like, that all stems from the riling up and the fantasy that's being spun from our fucking government. Like, I understand.
Well,
like,
yes and no.
It
comes from the spinning up of things that Corbell and Knapp and Elizondo and Grush are saying, not necessarily from the government, because the government is quiet on this.
But the problem is that those guys have front row seats in congressional hearings. They're being thanked by lawmakers in these hearings. To me, it's a little concerning as a taxpayer and as someone who's
status quo.
Who's interested in the topic.
Can you imagine? Just think for a minute.
Yeah.
The UFO topic is important to us,
right?
You, me, your 12.2 thousand subscribers on YouTube. It's important to us, right? But do you think for a minute that this is the government's first rodeo? I mean, you think Roe versus Wade, you think Planned Parenthood, you think all the institutions and organizations within the government, when they come out with something that is incendiary, it's inflammatory, it inconveniences the American public. More people are going to call their representatives on Roe versus Wade than they're going to call on the UFO topic. This is a drop in the bucket on the stuff that the government has to deal with on a daily basis.
I'm going to disagree a little bit. I'm going to say that this is, from my understanding and some folks that I've spoken to who have spoken to lawmakers, that this is part of their normal day now, receiving a few phone calls on this topic.
Because they work in an agency in an office that was never incendiary. It was always behind closed doors. It was always, but what I'm saying is Arrow is now tasting what other agencies have always tasted. It's just from a different group of people.
Yeah. No, you make good points. I guess I'm just a little aghast about how okay the Department of Defense is with this.
What are they going to do, though? They can't. If I came out tomorrow and started yelling and screaming publicly about Dr. Kirkpatrick and Arrow, I can do that. It's my right. The Department of Defense has absolutely no standing to silence me. They can't.
I don't know. I guess I'm having a hard time grasping this concept because I find it hard because the language that's being used is incendiary. It's violence inducing. When you say things like dereliction of duty or not corporate terrorism, but what administrative terrorism, lives ruined, people have been physically assaulted.
Well, put yourself in this position. Let's say that you are Dr. Kirkpatrick's boss. Okay. And I am a YouTuber. Let's say I'm a former lighting director that started off a YouTube show that talks about UFOs and aliens all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I start saying that Dr. Kirkpatrick is in dereliction of his duty, that he's a traitor to the American people, that he is lying to everybody.
Yeah.
What are you, as Dr. Kirkpatrick's boss, able, willing, and want to do to me legally?
Okay, fair. But my flip side to that coin is one day someone shows up to Kirkpatrick's office with a handgun or in the parking lot when he gets in the car and puts one in him. Then what?
That's illegal. Words and what we're saying, as much as I think it's despicable, distasteful, disrespectful, and ignorant for the people to say those things about Dr.
They have a right to say
about
that.
Arrow. They have a right to say that. What you don't have a right to do is use force and violence against somebody.
Right.
And when you cross that line, prepare to get your ass in federal pound me in the butt penitentiaries.
Yes, agreed. But I guess my bottom line is when they start to investigate why the shooter did it, it's going to go back to these moments.
It will.
It's going to go. Hey, I was told by the right-hand man of an American hero that the truth was being hidden from me, and I took it upon myself to fight for what was right in my Constitution or whatever the reason. You said it right there.
You took it upon yourself. You're responsible for your actions at that point. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But
the beautiful part about what our system is, we do not live in the movie Minority Report. You cannot prosecute somebody for a crime that they're going to commit.
Right.
They have to be guilty of committing the crime to be guilty of committing that crime.
Well, I was thinking of Alex Jones, but that event happened, and then he started making up lies about the event post, and so
but that's not criminal. That's civil.
That's civil. Okay, fair. But I'm thinking in, gosh, I guess I just find it insanely irresponsible, the Department of Defense, to let things like but then again, what do? I guess what do they do? But it's just like, I guess we have to wait until somebody gets hurt. Someone important gets hurt because of the words that have been said. And then,
I hope to God that never happens.
Well, I hope to God it never happens.
That's going to ruin two
is,
lives. That's going to affect the life of the person that gets hurt, and it's going to destroy the life of the person that does that nefarious action.
Rational people don't even have to say that out loud. You know what I mean? But my concern is that when this bill goes through, and in 6 months, when Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and who else decides that they're going to sue against this amendment, and it hides information even longer than we never thought possible, and then somebody gets motivated to do something because they think that their humanity is being trampled on, like that's, I guess I just find it very strange that it's like, well, somebody's got to get hurt before a law is written, where if you're threatening government employees or
that's how every law happens. We are a nation of reactive laws. We have seatbelts because people turned into bugs on the inside of their car windshields. We have speed limits because people were unable to control their cars. We have, the blue laws for drinking because people were unable to control their own actions. It's not because we feared it would happen. It's because it did happen. Yeah. And that's our system.
Yeah, no, you're right, man. And this is why I love talking to you. Because these conversations are always enlightening, and I love the back and forth. I guess I understand what you're saying, but I'm also that's shocking to me.
What I don't want.
We see these red flags. What I don't want. Yeah.
I hate some of the things that people are saying about Dr. Kirkpatrick. I hate some of the things that people are saying about anybody, right?
Right.
I would absolutely hate it even more if we had a branch of the DOD that operated like the Gestapo and came into your house and silenced you and said, you're not allowed to say that.
No, everybody has a right to the soapbox. I think the best thing to do is put as much light on it as possible. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's sometimes it's hard because it's emotional. You don't want anybody to get hurt, I think those things come from a good intention, but I think you're right also, just because they're well intentioned doesn't mean that the outcome of it is going to work in your favor. Like you said, who's going to be in charge of going over those messages? Who's going to determine, okay, that's worthy of going into that person's house, seizing their computer or whatever. I know we're not the Minority Report, but I see all the red flags, and I know that this is going to end up with somebody's going to get hurt.
It will. Somebody's going to do something. And because of their action, we are going to get stricter laws, stricter restrictions on all of us because some nefarious jackass did something irrational to somebody else.
Right.
That's how this works.
All right. Let's end on this. If we were, let's say, to do a big phone home for tomorrow, other than improving FOIA, which was sort of our big effort in the last one we did, what would Jeremy McGowan like to see on a initiative like that?
Our government is supposed to be a system of elected representatives of the general public. The legislation that is being presented is not representational of what the general public wants. What I would love to see happen is a portal, a interface, an ability for the general public to collectively propose, refine, and submit legislation that then becomes reviewed from a legal, compliance, and risk framework, so that our elected representatives are not developing this in a vacuum on their own just by having the ear of a few selected people. I think that you, me, everyone on UFO Twitter, the guy that serves my coffee at Starbucks every day, they should have the ability to add on the record, add their 2 cents into proposed legislation, especially on this topic.
Man, that would take a long time.
It's the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, if anybody could write that into a really concise, like, paragraph where we could tell a lawmaker, maybe we'll do it. Maybe we'll do it. Okay.
I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, especially now, it feels like it's too late. Like, this amendment's going to pass, or some version of it is definitely going to be in the NDAA. I mean, it's been in it for the last 4 years now.
Yeah, and I want people to know that I am not pro Burchett.
Yep.
I am not pro Schumer. I think both amendments suck for different reasons. Vaguely, the Burchett amendment only applies to DOD information. It doesn't consider civilian reports, things like that. The Schumer amendment, we've gone through the issues there. They're both bad. I am not championing one over the other.
Right.
I want the disclosure, but I want it to happen in a way that makes it actually possible for it to happen.
Right. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. But yeah, I think at this point, you guys are going to get what you asked for. And I don't think you're going to be happy with it. Okay, let's real quick. I want to give a shout out to Compliziert for the $20 donation. Thank you so much. It says Lou McGowan with a bunch of hearts and aliens and raccoons out there in the Twilight Zone for real. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for the donation. So I guess the next thing let's talk about is you went to Utah for what was it, the Phenomicon? Is that what it was called? Yeah. So for Phenomicon, and that is the UFO alien con, whatever you want to call it, that's put out in Utah, and it's put on by the Skinwalker Ranch crew. And Jeremy got an invite to go out there and talk. I guess real quick, tell us about how that was, and then we'll get into your meeting with Jay Stratton and what he said, because you had tweeted something out when you had met him, and it was kind of cryptic, and everybody's like, whoa, what'd he say? And then he appeared, I believe, on The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, was it? And then that's when you were like, oh, this son of a bitch. So how was the con? What did you talk about? And I think some folks are gonna ask, and I'm sure you got this question: why'd you do it?
Yeah, so I'll start with the last one first. I did the Phenomicon because I hate paranormal and alien conferences. I went there to present a presentation that was grounded in reality. It was grounded in biology. It was grounded in history. It was grounded in facts. And I gave that presentation. And it was extremely well received. I had so many conversations one-on-one with individuals after my talk.
What were
It went over.
the comments that stuck out to you?
A lot of people came up to me and said, "This is what I want to hear.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear speculation. I don't want to hear opinion. I want to hear concise, put together, pulled together information that makes sense." I don't. I'm going to skip around a little bit. Before I gave my speech, I was in the main hall, and I was relegated off to a little conference room on the side. I think there was maybe 30 or 40 people in there listening to me because there was other speeches going on at the time. But I went into the main conference room, and I couldn't take it. I forget who it was that was talking, but he was presenting as if this was fact.
Right.
He was telling people, and I am not making this up. If you can find clips of this, please do so and bring it up on your next show, because it was the most insane thing I've ever heard. This guy was up there telling people that bunk beds, children's bunk beds that they have in their bedrooms, are interdimensional portals to hell. I swear to God, that was, and he went on for 45.
That's all it takes to access a new dimension. Is just a little bit of wood, a box spring, and some nails. It was
the most unreal thing. And here I am in an offside conference room talking about if aliens ever visited Earth, that they wouldn't be hostile. And I had a 45-minute presentation pulled together that looked at the history of evolution, biology. I used, anecdotes from different tribes, things like that. Even more recent as some of the Jewish traders that were happening during the Spanish Crusade. All sorts of things to show that mutual cooperation and camaraderie is cheaper, less resource intensive, and brings scientific exploration to the forefront. And that's what people actually wanted to hear. They didn't care about interdimensional portals to hell in their children's bedrooms. And I think a lot of these phenomenons, these alien conferences, they exist because there's nothing else out there. There's no alternative out there. And people go, and in the back of their mind, they have a hope that they're going to get something different, but they never do. And the response that I got to my presentation showed me that there is an appetite, there is a desire for actual research.
Yeah.
And some of the people that were there were really, really good. I mean, James Keenan was there talking about the hieroglyphs and petroglyphs that were out there at Skinwalker and Blind Frog Ranch and McConkle Ranch. Brilliant, absolutely foundational in his approach. Not everything was interdimensional portals to hell.
Yeah.
And I think by and large, for the most part, people are a lot smarter than we give them credit for in this topic. And I just wish that there were more people that would consider the people in the audience that have critical thought, that are looking for actual answers to things, instead of saying my toaster is possessed.
Right.
And a point of clarification, yes, there is an association between the folks at Skinwalker and that conference, but to my understanding, the conference is not put on by Brandon Fugel and the folks at Skinwalker. It's actually put on by the county government, of Uinta County.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is put on by the county. I know they've gotten a lot of flack, and I've talked to Jock Brewer about this, about, having guys from the ranch on the committees that sit on the board that approves these things, and the payouts that they've been getting to do that. It's, but hey, if the city of Utah and the residents of Utah let this happen, that's kind of on the residents of Utah. There's nothing I can do.
It is, and I have no problem with these conferences happening. I just really wish that they would bifurcate.
Yes.
I wish that they would have the truly fringe interdimensional bedbug portals.
Yeah.
And then have actual scientific
Balance
researchers.
it. Yeah.
And I'm not a scientist. I'm not,
Right.
a prolific writer. I'm not an author of anything.
Well, not yet.
Now, but
yeah. And we'll get into that in a second. Yeah.
But I think that there needs to be a balance, and let the people choose where they want to sit and who they want to listen to.
No, for sure. I think my biggest issue is that it's elements of it is sold as real, especially when it comes to the skinwalker, like the thing of the skinwalker. And it's like, well, if that's real, you shouldn't be at conferences shaking hands and giving hugs, like, so I think that's where my issue is with it. If it's, I mean, to me, it looks like a little bit of nepotism and some guys getting together trying to create tourism dollars for the state of Utah, to me. Like,
well, of course it is.
And that's what it is, like, and there's a lot of money. I think the paranormal discussion is $1 billion industry.
Like
when you put in ghosts and UFOs, you think of all the TV shows, all the books, all the content that's ever been written in the history of paranormal, including science fiction films, like that counts. It's probably one of the biggest IPs out there, where you can come in, say whatever you want, and it's gold, so. I think the state of Utah sees that. We can
do it.
We're allowed to do it. I mean, look at Roswell. That city would not be there if it wasn't for lore.
Right.
Period. And those people that live in those cities depend on that lore to make money all year.
Sure.
And so if a real estate guy and his buddies bought a spooky ranch and decided to try and make a spooky Disneyland in that part of the state, I don't like it, but it's legal. And I'll just say to everybody, it's all bullshit. It's Disneyland. It is Disneyland. It's a paranormal Disneyland. It's fantasy. Go spend your money, have fun, but don't think any of it is real. That's, I guess, would be my warning there. That would be my caveat. I think Jack Brewer and Erica Lukes would be like, they're fucking ripping off the state of Utah. They because especially for Erica Luke, she lives in Utah. She's a citizen. So I think that for her, it's even more personal. But sure. Okay, so we got that out of the way. Now, the meeting with Axelrod, Jay Stratton, the fucking, the who now, by the way, Danny Sheehan is saying he was hired by Raytheon in the CIA to ruin disclosure, him and Travis Taylor, which is a really funny, interesting turn of events there. But so what happened with Jay Stratton, Jeremy McGowan?
I've met him twice, once that he knew of.
Yeah.
I won't go into the first meeting that I had with him because that's not my story to tell, but I was with somebody else there. What I will say is if you want to reach out to Chris Bartell and get him to tell his story.
Okay. Chris is probably watching.
Chris, if you're watching, I hope I didn't step on your toe there. But Chris
always leaves comments on my video, so he'll see this for sure.
He has a very, very interesting story. If he wants to tell it, I know it's a personal one for him, so it might not be something that he wants to discuss. And it's
but you were there. But you were there when it happened.
I was absolutely there when it happened.
Okay. Wow. Shit, man. Let me call Chris Bartell right now. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
The next day, because we knew that Stratton was there, I basically cornered Stratton in the main ballroom of the conference.
Yeah.
And I walked up to him, and
I can just imagine you. Hey, come here. Just
no, I stood behind me. I think he was talking to James Keenan at the time.
Okay.
and James had a booth there. Stratton was standing there talking to James. Stratton's wife was about 3 or 4 paces behind Stratton. And I just stood there and listened for a few minutes. And then I just tapped Stratton on the shoulder. And I was like, hey, I don't know if you know who I am. I introduced myself. He goes, yeah, I know who you are. I was like, okay. The only reason I'm talking to you is because I wrote these series of articles on Lou. He goes, I'm aware. And I said, I just want to know if I'm on the mark, if those were legitimate experiences that I had, or what your take is. And I will preface this by saying, I asked Stratton for a picture.
Mm.
He allowed me to take a picture of him, and he asked that the picture not be posted on social media. And I have not posted the picture on social media. He did not ask me to not divulge our conversation on social media. He only asked me not to post the picture.
Yeah,
because at the time, I think it was timing context, Stratton wasn't known to be at the conference. He was there with Travis Taylor at the conference. Anyway, when Stratton replied to me about Lou, he told me exactly what Lou did with ATIP. And he said it wasn't Lou's program.
In other words, what Lou's job was.
He told me that Lou never ran ATIP. Now, I will say that Stratton did speak as if ATIP was an actual program, but he never confirmed nor denied that it was. But he said it was not Lou's program. He said it was his program. He told me that he selected Lou because of Lou's knowledge of people and other programs. And I'm paraphrasing this. I'm not saying an exact quote because I didn't take notes, but I'm paraphrasing this from memory. Stratton said that he chose Lou to bring access to ATIP of other programs. I was like, what do you mean? And this is where I'm paraphrasing. He goes, and again, not a direct quote, don't hold me to this, but this was the gist of what Stratton was talking about. For example, if ATIP was looking at an incursion of Chinese drones over, let's say, the USS Roosevelt or something like that, and there is another department within the DoD that has that information, and ATIP did not have access to that information, and they couldn't put 2 and 2 together. They couldn't do a full analysis on the case because they didn't have access to that information. Stratton would pick up the phone. He would call Lou. Lou would make an introduction to the person that ran that operation, and then Stratton would have access to the information that he needed. Lou did not research, according to Stratton, Lou did not research UFOs or aliens or anything on behest of ATIP. Lou was a facilitator of introductions.
And we've heard him say that himself. We've heard him say he's not in the UFOs, never has been, never will be. He's a counterintelligence, counterinsurgency guy.
But that came from Stratton. Stratton told me that Lou did not run ATIP. Furthermore, Stratton also said, and this is a quote, this is not a paraphrasing. He goes, I've gotten tired of cleaning up Lou's shit. But at the same time, he went on to say, Lou does really necessary work that I need him to do. And he wasn't talking in past. He was talking in present. And that was this year. This wasn't, prior to him leaving in 2017 or whenever he left. That was this year, right? Stratton said, Lou does work I need him to do. And I asked Stratton what he meant by that. And I prefaced it by saying, why is all of this going out to podcasts? Why is it going to social media? Why is it, what is happening? And he says, and this is paraphrasing, He says, when I need something done, if I can't get it done by direct ask, I have to go out and use the media. And he says, I use the legitimate media. I don't use the Daily Mail or I don't use Liberation Times. I use the legitimate media.
He was on
And
the
I
Secret of
use it.
Skinwalker Ranch.
Well, he goes, I use it to embarrass the people that denied me access to what I need access to. And I took that to mean that what we're seeing in the media isn't necessarily true. It's what Stratton and whomever Stratton was working with or for or beside of, they would craft, they would put it together, and then some general somewhere is getting a call from a congressman saying, what the hell is going on with these werewolves? And it embarrasses the shit out of the general, and he doesn't want it. And then he picks up the phone and he's like, okay, Jay, cut it off. I'll get you the information that you need. Just pull that story. Don't talk about it anymore, which explains why things come out. They get a lot of visibility and then they die because the goal was achieved. Stratton got what he wanted because he used the mainstream media to force the issue in a way that wasn't that actual issue.
So then he's forcing, and we'll just use UFOs because that's I'm trying to think of what the mainstream, I'm thinking, of course, of News Nation, and it seems like they're pushing the narrative of, recovered, crashed materials from secret clandestine programs and or companies like Lockheed Martin, Skunk Works, things like that.
So certain things happen. If Stratton was to do that, and if he was to use the media to embarrass a general to make sure that he got access that he was denied to previously, that story is going to take on a life of its own. Stratton doesn't control the media.
Right.
So News Nation could pick this up and they could run with it and they could see their viewership explode and then they could stay on it and then they could develop other contacts and other sources and then, confirmation bias and just continue to run with it while Stratton's job's already done. He got the information that he needed through the embarrassment of the general, and the general's sitting back there going, Jesus Christ, I need to tell the guy the truth the first time that he asks because I don't want to suffer this anymore.
Well, so then let's use real quick just the example of Burchett, Luna, and Moskowitz going to Eglin Air Force Base, getting denied by the general on the base saying, you guys are not allowed to see this shit. And so what you're saying is then he would, once he kicks those idiots off the base, then he would call Jay Stratton and say, okay, I'll give you what you're looking for on the program that these guys are looking access to. And then so they get the answers to that program. And then what?
Then whatever Stratton's job is continues. Whatever his job was, I should say.
Do you think that job is trying to get, do you think he's actually then trying to get some kind of disclosure truth out of that tactic?
No, I think he's doing a job inside the government, investigating something that may link to national security, Chinese foreign technology developments, incursions into restricted airspace, things like that.
Now that makes sense. Like if he's pissing off generals and then they're making phone calls going, okay, fine, we'll look at that goddamn thing. We'll pay attention to it more. Maybe he's just trying to, I guess, poke the hornet's nest. That's something we've heard before. Poke the hornet's nest, so then that way the hornets pay attention to the problem, and that's the mission. That's it.
There you go.
Holy shit.
That's
so essentially, if what you're saying is true, that Jay Stratton said, is that they're protecting our national security.
That's their job.
So, and I've said this before, if I got worked over by Lou Elizondo and lied to him, manipulated by him, and it turns out that he was doing it in the name of national security in an instance like we just described here, I'd be okay with that. So I guess that means I owe Lou Elizondo an apology.
We don't have confirmation that that's exactly what happened. What I'm saying is what Stratton told me.
Right.
Is it true?
If
I don't know.
Right. If what you're saying is true, right. I would then I would have no problem apologizing to Lou Elizondo if that was the case. But if that was the case, honestly, all he would have had to do is say, "Hey, this is what's like." It's a national.
Well, you got to keep in mind that somebody like Lou
just talked about
may take it. Like Lou may take it a completely different step.
Right.
Stratton's boss and his agency may be doing one thing and using Lou as part of that. Lou doesn't maybe doesn't have the full big picture, and he takes a life of his own in a completely different direction.
Right. That's so interesting. Jay Stratton, if you're watching, I'd love to get you on the show, pal, because if that's the case, then the drive, that article that was written 3 years ago about the drone issues that we were having, the swarm drone issues that we're having, and this whole narrative is to bring awareness and to also destigmatize this topic so that way the reports can start flowing in freely and without any hindrance. And then that way the Department of Defense can look at these things and actually get an answer to this national security problem without admitting there's a problem.
The constituency and the general public does not pick up their phone. They do not call senators and congressmen and say, we have to stop China from sending drones into our national airspace. But what they do is they pick up their phone and say, hey, we need disclosure on UFOs and UAPs, which is the exact same thing. But it embarrasses the crap out of those gatekeepers and the disclosure and the people that have the information. And it allows people like Stratton and whomever else to get access to the information that they need, because now they've motivated the population base to pick up the phone and call.
And also that's why now that Schumer amendment makes perfect sense. Now it makes perfect sense. I went with that. And, this is probably the best episode of Lou Reviews we've had yet. Honestly, that makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. Not saying that's what it is. We can't confirm that's what it is. But holy shit, if we could get Jay Stratton to come on the show and answer some of these questions that we just proposed here, I don't think, I'd be honest with you, I swear to God, Jeremy, if let's say in a private setting, Lou had said exactly that, let's say we had this exact same conversation, I would have been like, Lou, what do you need me to do?
Yeah.
What do you need me to do? Well, how can I help? How can I help you fool all these people to keep us safer? I would have absolutely done it. And who knows? Maybe that's what that UFO podcast is doing. Maybe that's what Ross Goldthart is doing. Maybe that's what Gary Nolan is doing. Who knows? Who knows? And honestly, if that's what you guys are doing, I'm not going to give all of you guys that pass. Some of you guys are just greedy bastards. But some of you guys might be doing this shit for the right reasons. And that would make sense why Gary Nolan...
they understand why they're doing it. I don't think that...
if
my scenario is accurate, I think that people are being used in this regard. Because you can't tell that UFO podcast. You can't tell the Ross Coultharts. You have to be a person with a high sense of trust within the government system to be able to run a program and use the general populace in a way that makes your job able to be done. And you don't tell the construction crew that's building a bridge why the bridge is being built. You just tell them that it needs to be able to withstand 10 tons, and you leave it at that.
Right. Makes sense. Eventide, thank you for the $5 donation. He says this is eye-opening. I agree. I mean, look, we've talked about this. We've thrown this kind of idea, not that specifically. And it's just wild that Jay Stratton would just say that to you. Because he knows who you are. He knows that you talk you're not a guy to just keep your mouth shut. And I think, okay, so then what was it that Jay did that made you say this? I guess. What was the thing where you're like, oh, come on, man. Like, why would you do that? And then, and sort of reveal this conversation. Because I know there was something that he did that pissed you off. Or irked you. At the very least, it irked you.
I want truth.
Yeah.
Over anything.
Anything.
I want truth, right? And when you tell me that you use these stories to manipulate record keepers into providing you access on something that is completely different than the topic that you're embarrassing them with, and then you go out and you go on Skinwalker, you become part of that narrative, you become, you know, you're using black bears with mange to prop up the idea of a werewolf, and you're telling people stories that I don't believe is real. That bugs me. Just be honest.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, I always think of Jack Brewer, you know, and like folks like that, where it's just, I just don't like liars. I don't like being lied to. Nobody does. Nobody likes to be made to look like a fool, you know? And
no,
yeah, when you start talking about werewolves, and then literally the drawing that you have is a sketch from the guy who designed the video game. Like, it's like, come on, dude. Like, what? Why? And so, yeah, okay. Now I kind of get why you were like, you know what? Like, let's talk about what Jay talked about. But here's the thing is that when you've got the guy who's talking about werewolves, you know, stalking him at home in Maryland, which is so stupid, you know, like,
and you know, I don't know if he believes it.
Yeah,
I don't know if Stratton is saying that tongue in cheek and
no
just
way.
going, hey, let me see what I can pull over on people. Let's see how far I can. I don't know if he believes it or if he's just messing with us. And all I'm saying, and I don't even know if I believe what he told me.
Right.
All
that's
I'm
what
saying
I was
is
going to
what
say.
he told me.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you got a guy who's talking about werewolves stalking him. Like, how many eggs, I guess, can we put in the basket of, you know, what he's saying about Lou's job and the purpose of it, if that's true. But I mean, shit, man, I don't know. I would love to talk to Jay Stratton if he's got the gumption to come on this show. I mean, it's wild to me that, you know, all of a sudden, you know, when really simple questions start coming, all of a sudden people don't want to do the show and they start blocking it. You know, it's wild, dude. It's wild. But hell, you never know. I mean, look, I've got, again, and I've said this a million times, I've got zero issues making apologies, especially if the apologies are at the end of something like that.
Right.
Zero
issue. We can't know. We'll never be told that this was correct information. We'll never be told that,
unless,
yes,
of course,
this is how government manipulation operates. We'll never be told that.
Unless, of course, I mean, but what if Lou came out and was like, you know, yes, this is why we did. I mean, he probably wouldn't be able to do it for 40 or 50 years anyway. Like, if this is some kind of mission, say, or directive, it's probably classified and probably won't see the light of day for a really long time. But I mean, he told you that information in public, so that part of it is not classified. He wouldn't have told you if it was, right?
Right.
So
which let me go back to the fact that when Stratton said that Lou Elizondo did not run ATIP and it was his program.
Yeah.
If ATIP was a SAP, if ATIP was classified, if it actually existed, he couldn't tell me that.
Right. 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 Jay Stratton. Oh, Jay Stratton. You know what's funny is I don't have it right in front of me right this second, but it's like Lou Elizondo has sent me an email that Jay Stratton had wrote about him. And I'm not sure if this letter has made public light, but when Lou sent it to me, he's like, you can't share this with anybody. And I haven't shared it with anyone, but it was an email or a letter, written by Jay Stratton sort of, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, verifying Lou's bona fides and what he did for ATIP. So it would be funny if that letter contradicts what he told you,
Well,
as
now
far as what
let me
his
say this:
responsibilities were.
Stratton
Yeah.
did say that Lou Elizondo is exactly who he says he is.
Hmm.
Now, the thing is, Lou has said that he is a couple different people, so I don't
Yeah.
know which
Right.
part of that he's referring to. Is he
Right.
not a UFO guy? Was he told to come here
Yeah.
and apply his counterintelligence skills to the UFO community? Was
Yeah.
that what Stratton was referring to?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, is it that he, was with General Mattis and shooting people in a tank top? What part of that was Stratton referring to? I don't know.
Yeah. No, and I don't think we'll ever know. Well, maybe I'll take a look at that email. Maybe we'll look at it down the road. I know I've got it somewhere, but all right. That's interesting. That was interesting. I didn't think that the conversation was going to go there, but I'm glad it did. Because again, like, I always love getting information that changes, not so much changes changes my way of thinking, but like, in that instance, like, that makes sense, man. Like, it's logical.
Schumer Amendment into
A much crystal clear
a logical light.
Yes, it makes so much sense now why that Schumer Amendment is written the way it is. Interesting. Okay, so one of the last things we're going to talk about is this. Sean Cahill finally, somebody, the UFO Shane, who's in our chat, finally asked Sean Cahill about another Medium article that you had written. And it was a 3-part article, if I'm not mistaken, right? And it was about your relationship, 4-part. It was about your relationship with Luis Elizondo, Sean Cahill, the whole production shoot that you guys did together, what happened on that shoot, the red flags that you noticed, the things that were said, the things that were recorded because you guys were doing a TV show, and also your truck is literally a recording device on 4 wheels, so everything is always recorded, not because it's nefarious, but because that's what the truck does. And everybody knows that who sits in the truck. So somebody had finally, I'm gonna play this clip. I'll just tell you right now, it's edited because the question was about 3.5 minutes long. So I took the best part of the question and I edited it down and then had Sean Cahill's response. Now, I wanted to leave the whole thing in, but it was a 6-minute clip with the whole question. But the reason why I wanted to leave it in is because I wanted to address something that I heard in that questioning that I used to do myself. And that is this, because these guys are veterans, because these guys call themselves heroes in some cases, because these guys are put on a pedestal to a lot of us, and to me at one point, you always enter the conversation and the questioning, especially if it's an uncomfortable question, with a 3-minute preface of, hey, I hope this question doesn't offend you. And I'm not trying to be a jerk when I ask this question. But that turns into a, 3-minute, like, I love you, I just want you to know, I like, and it's just like a 3-minute ass kissing session. And I'm not knocking anybody for this. I'm not knocking you, Shane, for this. Was guilty of this shit myself. And I just want to call it out because I want you guys to be aware of it. When these guys,
I think it's something else also, Lou. The hate, the vitriol, and the responses that some people get for asking a hard question, not from the person that they're asking the question to, but from the broader community at large, is absolutely insane.
It's insane.
So when you come up against a Stratton or a Grush or a Cahill or an Elizondo, you're not necessarily pre-apologizing to them for the question, but you're trying to placate the general population and say, hey, don't attack me for asking this question.
And it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter. That's what my point here is. It doesn't matter how long that preface and that ass kissing goes for. You're going to get hated for asking the question. They're going to come down on you. And it happened to Shane. He literally quit after he asked the question because so many people came and just jumped on his ass for it. And he couldn't preface it any nicer than the way he did. And that's the reason why I'm bringing it up, is because I want you guys to know that when you do get in these situations where these heroes come into your space and they start answering questions, yes, say, hey, I'm a big fan. Yes, say, hey, I don't mean to be rude when I ask this, but then just ask it. Just get straight to it. You don't need to kiss their ass for 3 minutes. They're not gods. They're humans. They're just like you and me. And I wish somebody had said that to me when I was doing my show, because I know I was guilty of this stuff a lot. And it was because I was so afraid of offending not the person. I knew the person could always handle the question. It was the audience that couldn't handle the fucking question. So that's why I just wanted to bring that up. And this whole explanation was longer than the question that I edited out. But I had to point it out, because it's just be aware of it, you know, and don't be afraid to ask questions. And thank you, Shane, for asking this question. It took a lot of guts. And so I'm going to go ahead and play the clip without it stopping. And then we're going to get Jeremy's reactions to the specific parts of it. So here we go.
UFO. Shane asks Sean Cahill about Jeremy McGowan.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question, if you don't mind, Sean, that's probably not as nice as everyone else's questions. And I hope, as you said earlier, that you just want the truth, that you'll answer it as truthfully as possible. Is that okay?
Go for it, brother. Go for it.
Okay. And so I talked to Jeremy McGowan a little bit. He has since blocked me. The last DM I have from him is a smiley face, but he blocked me for someone that I follow, which I found super unfair. But he has made claims that you and him rode to Wyoming and that he told you about his kids and all these other things, and that you went to Wyoming with Lou Elizondo, and Lou Elizondo claimed to be a 33rd degree Scottish Mason, which there were no records of, and that he acted like a fortune teller in his basement, and that he believes that you told Lou Elizondo about the trip and to Lou to try to get Jeremy McGowan on board with this, and that's why he left UAPX and all this other stuff. What are your response to these claims that Jeremy McGowan has made?
Well, you may have noticed that to date I've made zero response, that I've had nothing to say about a lot of his opinions. His opinions are based on his experience, his knowledge, and his understanding of his life and his world. I don't share his characterization of that visit whatsoever. And while I'm not trying to live in a place of resentment, the proper word would be that I resent his characterization of it, because at no time in the period that we worked together and in the period that we were incredibly close friends, that we would say that we cared very deeply about each other, that we listened to each other in ways that other people hadn't. I have to say that I think both of us were not mature enough at the time to have as close of a relationship as we had. I've spoken to my own therapist about mistakes that I made, things that I regret saying to him. I know that for a period of time there were clandestinely taped conversations that were going around to some people that were being used to try to defame and discredit us. And that was very humbling. It was very humbling to have, and I'm not trying to make an excuse for using bad language or having negative thoughts in my heart about other people, or frankly shitty opinions based on reading the book cover instead of finding the person in between. But his characterization of those things, in my opinion, are there to protect him, and I have to grant that to him, because his perception of the way that went, I can't change it. If I can't go back and change the things that I said to him in anger when things weren't working out between us. But I'll tell you what I did wrong. I placed the onus of the entire experience on him, and that's not a fair thing to do. I told a person that he was the reason for all of the problems in his life. And previous to that moment, I had never said anything that hurtful to that person. And I cut him off, man. And when I say I cut him off, I mean I did that to him. I didn't block him, but I made it impossible for him to have a relationship with me, and I really regret that. And I think in a lot of ways I am responsible for a lot of the beliefs that he has now, because frankly, this is hard to say, I don't see it the way he did. Those are the most negative characterizations of something that you could give. And I will add to that first, secondly, no, I did not arrive and brief Lou on this ride. Nothing like that happened. We had an experience together. We were together all the time. I don't know anything about this Mason stuff. It's not something he and I have discussed. And so, and this characterization that he played fortune teller, that's a really screwed up way of saying, hey, man, can we talk about remote viewing? So again, he wasn't a skeptic before I pushed him over the ledge. So I'll take that responsibility for that. But after that, it's on all of us, man. This is a hell of a journey. We're all in a tough place that we're living in. And I hope, I don't mean any disrespect to him either. I'm going to continue to keep my mouth shut about it after this because I want to see him heal. I want to heal. I hope someday we're all on the same bus figuring out this shit together again because that's what this community needs. But it's regretful, man.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
So, well, there's a lot to dissect there. I think my favorite part was I didn't block him. I didn't block him, but I completely denied access to him on all fronts. I was like, wait, what?
Which is funny because I am blocked by Sean. So
Yes,
I don't know
yeah,
why
you
he
are
says
blocked.
I'm not blocked.
You are blocked.
Yeah.
Can I just start this whole thing? I've said this story before, but I just want to say it again because I think it really does reveal your character a lot. And that was when I was putting together the first Big Phone Home. I was obviously talking to Sean Cahill and I was talking to you, and I didn't know at the time that you and Sean Cahill had a falling out. And I was trying to figure out why. I was like, guys, like, what's going on here? Like, I'm doing this thing. I got a tent. Everybody's going underneath it. I need both of you guys. I can't have just one of you. Like, both of you guys are important voices in this discussion. And after talking to Cahill, after talking to McGowan and going back, like playing middleman, basically, I felt like the parent or the kid in a, I don't know, whatever. But when I had basically I'd went to McGowan and I had told him, hey man, I think we can repair this relationship. I'd like to see this relationship repaired. And I think something that would go a long way, and I know you're not going to like this, is if you wrote an apology letter to Sean. And at first you were really resistant to it. And I was like, look, just think about it. I think it just boggles me that you guys at one point would have taken a bullet for each other, but now won't talk to each other. And so I think maybe that's the thing that stuck with you that got you to do it. But McGowan wrote the letter. He wrote a letter to Sean Cahill reaching out and trying to mend that bridge. And you know what he did? Nothing. Nothing. He didn't respond to it at all, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right.
And yep. I was like, and it wasn't, that's cold.
To clarify, it wasn't necessarily an apology letter.
But it was a reaching out letter. Reaching out. It would, yes. But in that letter, there were moments where you're like, look, I'm sorry for this, and here's why, like, here's what I was thinking or where I was at. And I hope you can forgive me kind of stuff. Like, and it wasn't, like, hey, I'm 100% wrong. Please be my friend again. It was a really mature adult thing to do. And no apology is easy. But the fact that McGowan actually did it, to me, said a lot. And so I just wanted to preface with everything what we're about to say about Sean Cahill. It kind of comes from knowing him a little bit and our few interactions with him. I mean, you interacted with him way more than I did. But yeah, I'd like to get your thoughts on sort of the things he said, because he was very vague. To me, it was very like, he didn't address really anything that he said. He just kind of apologized for being a dick. And, anyway, what are your thoughts?
The first thing that I want to address is why Sean said that it came to his attention that there were clandestine recordings. First and foremost, there were not. What occurred, anything that was recorded was known to be recorded. And I'll say that definitively. Every single recording that I have ever used, published, quoted, or written about was actually recorded by Sean himself and sent to me as a voice note over Signal. It was not a recorded telephone call. It was Sean pressing the record button himself and sending it to me. So if he wants to say that I clandestinely recorded him, that is factually inaccurate. Now, anything that occurred inside the Osiris, as you said, that entire vehicle is designed to record everything inside and outside. There is a dash cam that is plainly visible on the front windshield that even has a flashy blue light when the microphone is recording. There's nothing clandestine.
Right.
So Sean himself over Signal, because he doesn't like using his thumbs to text, I guess, would record voice notes and send to me himself. That included his statement about Fravor. That included all sorts of different things. He voluntarily pressed the record button and sent those to me.
And just FYI, just so folks know, in case you're watching for the first time, we have the transcript of what he said about Sean about
Fravor.
David Fravor. We pumped it into an AI voice recreator and we posted it publicly. And it's in my videos. If you want to go check that out, please do. And McGowan, we did a show after that, after I did that. And I'm curious, I mean, just that recording was pretty accurate to what the actual recording sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing, one of the other things that Sean says is, we were talking about the fortune teller thing. And Sean said, that's a really screwed up way of, hey man, let's talk about remote viewing. How is that a screwed up way? I detailed exactly what happened, where it happened, how it happened. It wasn't in Lou's basement. It was actually at his kitchen/dining room table in the first floor of his house. But there was nothing screwed up about how I depicted that. I said it exactly how it happened. If it was screwed up, it was screwed up because it happened, not because of how I depicted it. Sean also said, I think at the beginning of his answer, he goes, if you'll notice, I've never made any response to this at all, which is factually incorrect. The day that part 3 of my article came out, Sean goes on Twitter and says, and I'm paraphrasing, he says, this morning I woke up to a litany of lies. And he continues on and says something about, I'll remain silent from here on out and let the lawyers handle it. Well, that was his response. So he has responded to it. Also, he says that this was a characterization based on my opinion. What I did in those articles, and you can go back and read them.
Link in the description.
If I put something in bold, italics, and quotes, it's because I was sent a voice note that says exactly what is in bold, italics, and quotes. That is not an opinion. That is a direct frigging quote. Also, Sean claims responsibility for pushing me over the ledge and me becoming a skeptic. Sean doesn't hold that much power.
No.
This was not even about Sean. This was about Lou. But for some reason, Sean feels as if he is responsible for, quote, pushing me over the ledge. He does not carry that much weight with me. Sean and I were friends, but through his actions, through his words, I saw the person that he actually was. Is he the same person now? I don't know, because I have no way to interact, because yes, I am blocked from him. But the person that he was then is certainly not anybody that I want in my life. And
do you think he's changed?
Opinion. I'm sorry?
Do you think he's changed the way he describes?
I have no way of knowing. I have no way of knowing if he has changed or not. But he didn't push me over a ledge. It was a conglomeration of a multitude of different data points that I got from him, from Lou, from Hal Putoff, from Jim Semivan, even from Chris Mellon. All these different data points, all these different statements and phrases and things that I was told and things that were done and things that I saw happening, even down to James Fox and Scott Carlin and Jeff Sagansky. All of these guys, it's a conglomeration of all of that I pulled together, and it showed me that it was bullshit. It wasn't Sean. It was everything.
Right.
And, it wasn't my perception. It's what happened. It's literally what happened. If you want to talk about perception, we can talk about how Sean himself goes out and tells people that I almost killed Lou Elizondo in the back of the Osiris when it caught on fire. He's telling people that. I released the video of exactly what happened. There was no fire. There was some sparks, and there was people that jumped out of the car and go, "Oh my God, your power supply is shorted out."
Yeah.
There was no fire, and Lou wasn't even
I was going to say,
car.
he wasn't even in the car. He wasn't even in the car. He was in the truck in front of you guys, right?
So I have definitive proof of things that Sean says that are blatant falsifications, and there is nothing that anybody has where I've said something that was proven wrong.
Yeah.
There's a reason that he stays silent, because he knows that everything that he has sent me, at any point in time, I could press play and release absolutely everything, but I have not done that. That's why they're silent.
Yeah. I agree. That's why they don't address any of these things. And if they do, it's not directly. It's not like naming anything.
Right.
I found it funny
And
that
one
go
other
ahead.
thing, Luke.
Go ahead.
Sean, I'm going to give Sean the benefit of the doubt on one thing. When he says that he never arrived and briefed Lou on our trip, I actually believe him. I don't think that he walked up to Lou and presented him a notebook and said, "This is everything that Jeremy and I talked about on the trip."
Yeah.
But Lou is an intel analyst, counterintelligence. He is trained to ask questions and get information. And I think that Sean provided information to Lou without even realizing what he was doing. So when Sean says he didn't do it, I believe him, because I don't think he understands actually what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I don't know if I've ever told this story. But when I was talking to Sean and trying to get to the bottom of why you guys didn't like each other, his reasoning was because you had ruined a $2 million television deal. And his wife was super pissed at you because of it. And, and in the back, that's one of the earliest red flags I remember getting, was that comment right there. And it was something very similar that Jennifer Elizondo had said around Stephen Greenstreet. And that was his first red flag. And it was about money. And this idea that they missed out on a huge lucrative television deal because of something you did or something you said at the production.
I pulled out of the production because I realized that it was a sensationalistic expose of crap that never happened,
right,
or things that were staged, or things that were not true. And I was not going to have a part of lying to the public.
So is that why
a $2 million deal to fall apart?
Yeah.
So be it, because there's not enough money in the world for me to lie to the public about what could be the most important topic in all of human history.
Right. And I mean, at the time, just if you guys aren't familiar with this story, like, they were planning television ideas where they pick up strange metal in one state and Jeremy's got to drive it cross country in the Osiris to another state. And in his brain, he's saying to himself, why isn't this space metal from aliens being, transported by security? Like, the highest security that you could possibly put around. If it's genuine alien material, you know, and there was never any good answers for stuff like that. And so when you get into these situations where they're like, hey, we're going to make a TV show around you guys, you know, where Jeremy's got the truck and Cahill wants to hug the phenomenon. Lou wants to know what it is. And this is the TV show, you know, and McGowan's like, nah, I'm not doing that. That's stupid. And also my truck would never go that, like, it will never make it. Like you guys are like,
who in the right mind would take what could be metal from an alien crashed ship,
right.
which would be by definition the most important material ever existed on the face of the planet, and send me and a then 24-year-old truck with Geico liability insurance across the United States to pick this up and transport it back again across the United States to take to Hal Puthoff to have it analyzed for a television show.
Yeah, a
Shouldn't this be
TV show.
Done
Right.
with Guardian
Congress?
security, armored cars, federal marshals,
Yeah.
you know, and be done without a television show because the information is so frigging important that you shouldn't have to wait for a damn TV show to do it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that's, you know, that's an interesting story that I had gotten from Cahill when I was trying to reconcile the relationship. And again, that was one of the red flags that had popped off in my head when I had heard. I was like, man, that's weird. I thought this wasn't about the money, and who gives a shit? It's a TV show. Like, there's so many, if this is true, there's so many more than, there's much more than TV shows that's coming down the pipe. Like, you know, this is going to be a 24/7 thing where you're going to be needed as an expert to talk about, you know, what people don't know or haven't read about, essentially, even though, you know what I mean? Like, if this was real, Sean Cahill would be on every single news platform because there wouldn't be enough people with knowledge to go around to try and explain this shit. But, you know, what I found funny about that whole thing is, you know, we've got that AI recording of Sean Cahill and sort of the things that he said about David Fravor and, you know, how he didn't like him and you know, if he called him smarmy and also said he'd knock him down if he was commanding officer. He would have embarrassed him.
He said if he was the chief,
and Fravor
was the commanding officer, Cahill would have smacked Fravor.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy whose ass I would have kicked. That's what he said.
Exactly.
He's the kind of guys whose ass I would have kicked. And it was just like, holy shit. And he was saying this when, you know, David Fravor was being prompted around on 60 Minutes and being a hero all over the place, you know, like he had these deep-seated feelings about Fravor while publicly stating, you know, oh, this guy's the most credible. He's an American hero, yada, 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 you know, selling the whole Fravor story.
Clandestine recording. That is
it's a voice
Sean
memo.
Sending me a voice. He is the one who recorded it.
Right. Right. And honestly, like, that's why I was dying to put out that audio, because I'm like, man, if people hear this and they know what time frame it's from, in my brain, I'm going, yeah, that's the end of it. Like, that people are going to like be shocked by this information. They don't care. Like, it doesn't matter.
And, you know, I want to say something to UFO Shane, because in that question, he goes, yes, McGowan blocked me for somebody I follow, and he didn't think that was fair. Sorry, but I blocked you the way that I blocked, I think, 400 and some different people so far, because they follow King Milkfart. Is it juvenile? Maybe. Sure, take it as you will, but it's my policy. If you follow, help, aid, assist, or provide comfort to the enemy in any way, shape, or form, I will have nothing to do with you. Up until that point, I thought UFO Shane was a pretty stand-up guy. I still value the conversations that we had, and I have nothing personally against him, but that's my policy. And if you can fault me for anything, it's that I stick to what I say that I'm going to do.
And I can't fault that policy. I'm being honest with you. I mean, the guy is an absolute maniac, and he has caused havoc and a lot of pain, real world pain. And so,
he published pictures of my family.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Yeah, well, the things they've been doing to me here in the last month or so have been pretty fucking gross. I mean, thankfully I've blocked it all. I don't see really any of it. But yeah, it fucking it's if you interact with that piece of shit, if you talk to that piece of shit in your spaces, if you let him spew his bullshit, I don't want anything to do with you. Like, I don't want to be your friend. Like, why the fuck would I want to be your friend?
It wasn't even an original thought of mine. Jay from Project Unity, I said it first.
Well, that's funny because he blocked me.
This is a damn good policy. So I just emulated what Jay had done.
No,
I think it's a fantastic policy.
I think, yeah, if it's a policy you adopt, I understand why. It's not a policy I adopted. Only because, like, to me, it's like, if you start attacking me, or if I see that you're trying to be buddies with me, but I also see that you're buddies with him, that's where I'm like, I'll block you, or I'll take you off my friends list or whatever. You got to do something pretty extreme for you to be blocked by me.
And there was shifting gears a little bit because I just don't want to bring more attention to that jerk.
Right. No, for sure.
But somebody had posted, I don't remember if it was on Reddit or if it was on a Twitter thread or something. They were attacking me for whatever, and asked if my truck, the Osiris, has actually ever gotten any usable data. Can we see that?
Yeah, we can. Shall I read it?
Right above my thumb right there.
Yeah.
I am listed as a co-author. This is the paper that everybody has been waiting for. It is done. The scientific paper from UAPX is finished. We were supposed to send it out for publication on the 30th. There was an issue with the upload. It didn't happen. It is being worked. We hope that it is out on Monday. I am not making that a promise, but the paper is done. And this is scientific. It is 40 some pages long, and it's all about the expedition that we had to Catalina. It is all about the anomalies that we recorded at Catalina. And I think that if people actually take the time to read it, they are going to realize that this is a seminal publication, something that has never before occurred, and it will resonate throughout the scientific and academic communities for decades to come on how to approach the research on this topic.
Can you read us the title and who it's published by? Or authored by? No, I'm saying go ahead and read it. Yeah. Or by heart. Yeah.
Yeah. It's initial results from the first field expedition of UAPX to study unidentified anomalous phenomena. Authored by Matthew Shadagas, Kevin Knuth, Ben Kugielski, Cecilia Levy, myself, and Gary Voorhees.
And it's also, I don't know, to say co-sponsored by SUNY
well, not necessarily
university,
sponsored by.
Yeah, how does that work? Yeah, if you could
if you see the authors, each author has a little letter beside their name, and that shows who they're associated with.
Yep.
So Shadagas, Knuth, and Levy are all associated with the University of Albany.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm hiding it is because it's not published yet.
Yeah.
So I can't release the document, but I want the world to know that it is done. It has taken nearly 2 years, and Dr. Shadagas and Dr. Levy and Dr. Knuth and everybody else has busted their humps trying to get this paper finished.
And I've gotten a little sneak peek taste into it. I think people are going to be
it's going to be divisive.
It's going to be divisive, but I think it's going to bring a lot of clarity, and it's also going to bring some questions. I think, and it's going to bring questions from the scientific community, not UFO Twitter. Who gives a shit about that? Like, this is not for UFO Twitter. This is an actual scientific paper that's being published in a scientific journal, and that is going to be peer reviewed by other scientists, and their opinions are the ones that are going to matter. Anything outside of that is really not that fucking important. I mean, I'm sure everyone's going to have opinions, and I think a lot of people are going to read this and not understand it because it's a lot of math. It's a lot of math. But I told this to McGowan behind the scenes. I can't wait to see what Mick West says, because I know he's going to read it and I know he's going to have an opinion on it. And I think it'll be one of those moments where you go, okay, all right, Mick West said that thing. Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens from here. So
I'll make a prediction. And
yeah,
if Mick reads it, and I hope he does, I think he's going to be okay with it.
yeah.
I think the rigor, the methodology, the approach, the science, the math, it's all documented. It's all laid out, and it's checkable. And I think he's going to look at it and go, I agree with that.
That's cool, man. Well, I'm excited for UAPX. I'm excited for you. I mean, just stay tuned, guys. This is going to be dropping here in the next, hopefully, few days. We don't want to put a date on it because we don't, nobody wants to get disappointed. But eventually, once everything's there, it'll upload and boom, and it'll be free to view for all. There'll be no paywall. There'll be no hidden access. Everybody will be able to read it. Everybody will be able to give their opinions on it. Everybody will be able to share it. It's not the Soul Foundation, where we only get, conversations, behind closed doors. It's not early access. None of that shit. Like, you guys are going to get it when everyone else gets it. And let the murder board decide how good this paper is, and
Exactly.
So I'm excited for it. Real quick, UFO John Doe with a $10 donation. Best rational explanations on what's going on in this nutty world of aliens and UFOs. Great show. Too many crazy puppets being manipulated. Disclosure coming soon. LOL. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Lou. Thank you for the donation. Thank you for the support. We really appreciate it. Jeremy McGowan.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I just got a text message.
Okay.
The
Breaking news?
The paper just got published.
Okay, what's the link? Give me the link. Put it in the private chat here, and I'll put it in the...
This just came in.
Yeah,
from Dr.
text it to me if you want.
I will text it to you right now. Let me see.
All right, you guys. So here we go. Papers published, literally live as we're talking. So there we go. Look at that.
I gotta type this out. It's a long URL.
No, take your time. Take your time, Jeremy McGowan. Here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this one thing here. Delete that. Yes, I'm sure. And then I'm going to...
All right, now.
Yep.
I just sent it to you in private chat. Here's the thing.
Yep.
The paper is published on a preprint server. That means it has not yet undergone peer review. The paper will also be published in Elsevier. Elsevier is one of the most preeminent scientific journals on the planet. When it is published in Elsevier, it will be behind a paywall. It will not have changed. It will be the same paper, but it will have gone through peer review process. This is a preprint server where we are honoring our commitment to allowing the entire world access to the research.
Okay, cool. Well, here comes the link, you guys. So I'll go ahead and put it there in the chat, and we'll pin it to the top. So if you're watching this on replay, it's in the live chat, and I'm also going to put it in the show notes.
So I can correct it if it doesn't.
Okay.
Make sure it works. In case I typed it wrong and it doesn't work.
Oh wait. I think this is different. This is Cornell University Lucid Dreaming Controllable Object Centric 3D Generation.
No, that's
wrong link, guys. Wrong link. Bear with us. I'm going to unpin the message. Cal Batterman with a $20 donation. Lou, great show. Nice greetings from Kai. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate the donation. I genuinely appreciate the donation. That is awesome. You're going to get a really awesome little meme here in a second that'll pop up in the corner. So truly appreciate the love. Give us a second, guys. We're working on this here. No worries. Take your time, McGowan. Let me see here.
Okay, here we go. I just tested it and this works. So
Okay. All right.
I
Let's
don't
see
know
here.
what I fat fingered before. Oh yeah,
Sorry.
I had numbers wrong. So
All right,
that
here we
link
go.
does work.
All right, here's the link, y'all. There you go. There's your meme right there. Again, thank you for the donation, Kai. I really appreciate it. So again, I'm going to pin this to the top of the chat, and I'm also going to put this link in the description below after the show, so it'll be there on replay, and I'm also going to check this. So yeah, initial results from the first field expedition of UAPX to study unidentified anomalous phenomena. There you go, guys. It's there. You guys could share it on Twitter, of course. Again, like, we don't care what Twitter thinks. It's not for Twitter. It's for the scientific community. That's where it's going to go. And I'm interested to see. And I asked Jeremy earlier before we started the show, when do you guys expect to sort of get some reactions from the scientific community? How long do you think it's going to take them to sort of digest this paper?
I think initial reactions are going to be metered. They're going to be measured, but I think they're going to come in just a matter of days. I am predicting that from the scientific and the academic communities that the initial response is going to be bravo and excellent methodology, way to cite your limitations, your issues, the problems that you faced. And I think that the recommendation that is inserted into the paper in the conclusions is going to resonate throughout the scientific and academic communities, because we actually provide advice. We provide advice to the scientific and academic community on how to mitigate a problem of definition. And because it's published in a scientific paper, organizations like the Galileo Project, the Soul Foundation, when they do research and when they publish scientific papers, this paper will be cited as a reference, because they're probably going to adopt the process, the methodology, and the recommendation that came out in this paper.
They're gonna have to, right? And I bet that's gonna chap their ass when they see your name on it, my friend. Oh my God. That's great. Well, look, we've been going at it for 2 hours. The paper just published. I'm going to let everybody digest it. But what I will ask, maybe we can get together in the near future here with possibly some of the boys at UAPX to sort of celebrate and talk about this paper. And maybe even at that point, we could get some early sort of rebuttals to the paper and see how excited the community gets about it, or if they find holes in it. That's the whole purpose of this. So it seems like UAPX is super confident. I can't wait to see what the results are. And yeah, man, congratulations. That's a really, really cool. It's a cool day. It's a cool interview. Awesome. That it turned out to be.
And that was great timing from Dr. Shadagas.
Perfect timing. Thank you, Ms. Dr. Shadagas.
And I've also, if the link's not working on the chat for whatever reason, go to my Twitter. Yep. And see
it'll be there.
I just posted it on Twitter.
And what's your Twitter handle, real quick, just so everybody knows? Osiris
UAP. OSIRIS UAP. No underscore, no dashes.
Also, yeah, I posted when I originally posted the second link, there was something else added to it. That was my bad. I got the right link there now, so that link definitely works. And I'm sure I'll be retweeting Jeremy's tweet as well. So yeah, this is an exciting day. Jeremy McGowan, dude, thank you, man. Thank you again.
Hey,
for coming on the show.
And
it's always fun.
And I want folks to know that I'm approachable. If you don't like the things that I've said, let's have a conversation about it. Talk to me.
Yeah.
There's no sense in bringing my family into it, or going outside and tagging my employer, or being a general dickhead. Approach me. Let's talk about things. Let's try to straighten it out, because you never know. We may actually see eye to eye on something after it's been explained in more than 280 characters.
Yep. All right, my man. Well, thanks again. And I hope to be talking to you soon with the boys, just to see where this went, man. I'm excited. Fun day. Science on Sunday. Look at that.
There you go.
All right, McGowan, go back, enjoy your family. Thank your wife for giving me 2 hours of your time. And we'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Lou, it's been a pleasure. Always.
Always.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. All right, that was Jeremy McGowan, everyone. The man, the myth, the legend. Yeah, go check out the paper. Leave your comments down below. I mean, I think this is one of the best episodes we've done in a really long time. I always love talking to Jeremy McGowan. For God's sakes, I tried to get him to be a co-host of the show. I would kill for that one day, maybe. Because, yeah, I think the conversation's always elevated because his eye on things are so unique, because he literally, all he does, and give me a thumbs up in the back room, McGowan, if this is accurate, but you basically write like instruction manuals, right? Like really technical manuals for other people to read to learn how to do shit. So, you know, like when he's got his eye on things, man, it's always a killer's perspective. And if there's one thing I know about him, man, he's incapable of telling a lie. just like what's his face, Eric Davis. No, but I mean, he's one of the most stand-up dudes I've met in this field, and everything that he told me was gonna happen has happened. Every single thing. It happened to me. Obviously, you guys saw that. So yeah, I can't thank Jeremy McGowan enough. I'm sorry I don't have any music here to outro you guys, but I will end the show with this. Please don't forget to smack that like button, share button, and ring the bell. That way you're notified anytime we go live. If you want to support the show with the almighty dollar, thank you to everyone who did in the super chats. I love you all to death. Link for Patreon is in the description below if you want to support that way. Thank you for embarking on this journey of discovery together. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and thank you for subscribing to Lou Reviews. Until next time, thank you for helping raise the bar. We'll see y'all later. Peace. Oh, that's the wrong one. There you go. Thank you guys. Love you all. Have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.